Hello. In this video, I want to cover the import-export routine of shapefiles, specifically regen and fuel break units from RMS and to RMS. So this is something that everyone's probably going to do from time to time, and it's a little bit complicated. We've tried to make it easier now. And so what I'll be describing here is actually the new import-export routine. We've eliminated a couple drop-down menus and put everything right here in the toolbar. So just to jump into it here, I'm going to just start with exporting. So the idea here really for exporting is it should only really be necessary if you're doing major, like large changes to a lot of data to where it would be too painstakingly slow to double click on that feature, go in here and change potentially the plant year, for instance, for 50 features. Or if you had a set of features where you needed to do a lot of heavy geometry work, RMS doesn't have, well, RMS really only has simple geometry editing, so that functionality comes from double clicking. If you double click here, it will go into edit mode and you can freely edit that shape. The concept really overall is that the gold data, the good data that you're going to use, is always in RMS. So if you were to edit the geometry here and save it, that would be perfectly fine. That will become or will instantly be the gold shape from then on. If this feature, for instance, needed to be split in half, divided into two different regen units and re-ID'd, that would be an instance where you would want to remove it and export it, edit it in Atlas, and then re-import it. So for the sake of this, let's just go ahead and make a selection here. And we're just going to take 7 features. You can see when I made that selection, they're all selected here. We have a new filter, 7 records, and they're all here. So to get those out of RMS, I'm going to go to this blue export dropdown, export regens, and you're just going to select the filter. It's kind of the same as saying selection. Again, everything based on filter. So I'm just going to throw this on my desktop and this test folder for now, I guess. Yeah, that's fine. Somewhere where you can find it. Okay, regen shape has been exported. And from here, let's just pop into Atlas and we will import these. It's going to ask you a couple questions here. This is not just from RMS. This could be in any other shape file. Basically, any field that we already have in Atlas, it needs to rename these. So it's not going, you're not going to lose the name. It just appends an _1. So you can always just click yes here. Missing a projection. It's always NAD 27. So we can just say use this choice. Okay. And here's our features. So let's take a look at this attribute data now. EAB. And we've got a lot of attribute data here. Area or acre cost. So what we've done essentially is take the RMS data and crosswalk it into standard attributes. So link is technically the regen ID. So from RMS, what was regen ID, we now put into link C1 and so on. Everything that is a part of these standardized attributes, link labels C1 through 6 and N1 through 3, will have been populated correctly. So that takes a little bit of the guesswork out. Previously, these would have all been blank and everything would have been pushed off to the right, which caused an issue for our import routine. And so now we're trying to put it in a more logical space. In this instance, you could change anything in here technically, and then when you imported it, you'd have an opportunity to update that data. I would suggest, again, that if you're going to be really working with attribute data, you should probably be doing that in RMS. That's what the application was built for. But if you need to, you can do it out here. So for this example, let's go ahead and split this. Well, let's split one of these features. So to do that, I'm just going to take the scissors tool here, split features, and we'll just cut this in half, roughly. So obviously the problem here now is that we have duplicate links, and this is kind of a cautionary tale here. It would be best to actually have, well, either a unique ID or no ID at all. So for this scenario, we're not going to expect you to know how to properly ID these, so I'm just going to click delete that one. So now we have this feature split in half. Suppose C6 could be something else. We'll call this unit 2 and save that. This will be unit 1. Save that. Okay, so we can pretend we did a whole bunch of work on all of these too, and now we want to, we've modified the boundaries and we want to bring this back in. So this layer exists in this geo, so I'm just going to pop back over to RMS, and now we're going to do an import. So this is what the new import routine window looks like. There's a brief explanation over here, and then there's going to be a little bit more of a write-up in the manual on how to do this, as well as this video again. So first thing to do is to select the shapefile. Let me navigate to that. Let's see here. Here it is. And you can see what we've done is we've added the ability for you to do your own crosswalk. So the hope is that we'll all follow the standardized attributes and have everything hooked up in the correct location. I think in most cases that will actually be the case. And so when you select one, select a shapefile to bring in, it's going to do that crosswalk for you. So here where it says attribute, this is from the shape that you are importing, and this property type is of the shape that you're, well, for RMS, it's the database for RMS. So you can see that we already are doing the crosswalk for you for all the required fields. Link is automatically populated with regen ID. C1 has silviculture, and so on. If you had a lot, if you had chosen to update the status or harvest year or something else outside of RMS, you would also want to match that up. So you'd want to go from status to status here and link that up. Again, if you are trying to update attribute information, we need to overwrite existing attribute data. And that can be the case even if you're not bringing in outside any of these extras. If you change the link like we did for that regen ID, we do want to overwrite that information. And it's not really a problem for those other units that we didn't even update, because it's going to check the regen ID when it imports, and if it's the same, it will just try to update the geometry. And if the geometry hasn't changed, then no harm, no foul. If the geometry had changed, then it will update it. Same thing actually applies if override existing attribute data is off. We always will require a regen ID. So if you're not overriding the existing, it will just update the geometry and it will not update any of the attributes. I think that's kind of self-explanatory there. Okay, so there's another potential way to use this would be if you are not following the standard attributes and this preset doesn't work for you, you can make your crosswalk the way that you like it, and then you can save that crosswalk. So we have a couple standards already in here. You could save your own, and then next time you want to import, you would just load that. I think in most cases, the standard will probably work, but we did add that option. So let's go ahead and click Save. It says the selected shapefile will update 7 features. Do you wish to continue? Yes, that makes sense. We knew that there were 7 coming out, and well, we know that there's 8 coming in from here, features 8. That's because we added one, technically. We changed that regen ID on one, left the other the same. So 7 are just being updated. And we'll click yes. It doesn't say anything about the one that's being added, but it will add that feature if it doesn't already exist. Okay. Got a little bit of a black screen here. Let's give this a second to push through. Okay. Would you like to filter on new regens? Might as well. We're kind of interested in that. So this is new regens only. So if I click on that, you can see that that's the new regen that we added. So that's what we split. Everything else is going to look the same. I just have an error in my expression that I wrote, so just ignore that for now. But yeah, we're looking at 11 minutes here. I think that really does essentially cover it. The main concept to remember is that you need to keep that link field unique. If you're bringing in new ones, this is what's going to happen. Remember we left that regen, we left the link empty, and so we just populate a temp ID in there, and somebody at Alpine will go and find that, and we'll correct that for you. Alrighty, thanks for the attention.